What is going on, Giants fans? We're missing our typical host today, but excited to do the three of us today. And this Baddog's on his trip, his yearly trip to Disney World. So hopefully he's having a good time in Florida, enjoying the good weather with Anthony. We finally started to get warm here, but it's supposed to get like 40 or 50 again in New York in the next couple of days. But it's nice to get a touch of 70 today and tomorrow. So that's good. But how are you guys doing? Good to see you guys back and excited to talk some Giants football.
Me too. Glad to be back. I had a nice little vacation myself. I was in the Dominican Republic, so I got a taste of the humidity and the warm weather that Anthony and Baddog are experiencing in Florida. But it was great. It was nice to get away a little bit, had some pina coladas, played golf. I hope I look a little tan. So it was good. Back to it, right into the swing of things with the draft being around the corner, which is crazy. I just booked my hotel for Pittsburgh, so I'm pumped about that. And the owners' meetings got some good little nuggets between Harbaugh, Shane, OBJ. JPP is tweeting out that now he wants to come back to the Giants too. So, it's exciting maybe to be a Giants fan for the first time in a while. Yeah. All these players coming out of the woodwork like, hey, I want to come back.
That's the Harbaugh effect, right? Harbaugh gets here and suddenly everybody wants to be a Giant again. But Anthony, how are you doing, buddy?
I'm good. I'm excited for there to be something to talk about legitimately with the New York Giants. Like, we're kind of finding sparing topics here and there. The Odell stuff has kept us going. Now JPP, as Adriana mentioned, wants to be a Giant. So there's stuff to talk about, but draft season is almost here, and that's what I'm excited about. I love the NFL draft. I love all the storylines that lead up to the NFL draft for a week or two before the draft kicks off. I like making the predictions, going through the speculation, hearing the trade rumors, hearing this is who the Giants like, here's who they don't like, and then trying to figure out what's the fire behind the smoke. I love all that stuff, and I'm excited that tomorrow it's April, so it's officially NFL draft season. But in the meantime, I do think there's still some other things to discuss, and I'm excited to go ahead and dive into it.
Yeah, 3 weeks out from the NFL draft. It's going to be here before you know it, and then we'll be excited about the upcoming season when it really matters and get to, evaluate some of the players that the New York Giants brought in, and excited to talk about the draft as it gets closer. And I'm sure we'll talk with the chat today. Then I'm sure they'll have some questions leading up into the draft. But we got to start with the topic, even though it doesn't excite me. You go on Giants Twitter. I mean, whenever OBJ's name comes up on Giants Twitter, he's like the toast of the town. Like, as I said to it in our group text today, OBJ could be 60s, 50, 60 years old, and Giants fans would still be dying for him to come back and play with the New York Giants. Word is, like you said, he was at the owners meeting. Rumor has it, I think it was one of the reporters. I forgot. I think it was Colin. Why am I forgetting his name? Hughes, is it? Off the top of my head, I forget. I saw that he tweeted. Connor Hughes, rather. That it's likely that they potentially could be having a. He may be coming back to the New York Giants, so we'll see. A reunion, that was the word I was trying to come up with. So we'll see how it plays out. But what's your guys' take on the whole OBJ thing? We'll start with the lady, like we always do.
I'm on board with it. I wasn't for a while. I will say the last, probably from 2021 to 2024, I was like, nah, I'm not really into it. Enough is enough. Like, let him do his own thing or whatever. And at this point, I'm just like, we have seen so much bad football, and I just think it would be fun at this point. And the way I look at it is, it's a low risk, potential high reward type of signing. He's not going to get a 2-year, $50 million contract. He's going to get a vet minimum for 1 year. He's really excited to come back. I think he's motivated. He's energized. He was one of the best route runners in the NFL. I'm sure everyone saw the one-handed grab that he just made during the flag football. Like, I still think there's something left in the tank. And I think he's matured. The guy is 33 years old. He has a child. He's not, a 24-year-old still kind of trying to figure it out. Like, I think he's really been through his humble phase. I think he's at the point where he just wants to play football and try and win a championship and go out on a high note. And I think he's a competitor. I think he's going to bring a good attitude. And I also think that he would really help out Malik Neighbors. Malik Neighbors and Jackson Dart are commenting on his Instagram post saying, let's go, come to the Giants. Like, there's photos of him having dinner with Abdul Carter. Like, these guys are into it. And I think that's half the battle, right? Is you can say, well, maybe I have concerns about the immaturity and what he's like in the locker room, but I don't think any of these guys would go above and beyond out of their way to be posting and having dinner with him and having these meetings and whatever if they really felt like he was a cancer to the locker room. And I just don't see it at this phase of his career. I think he's had a lot of life's perspective. He wants to come in, and I really think he wants to retire a Giant. And now he's worked with Harbaugh before. Harbaugh called him one of his very favorite people. They met when they were at the owners' meetings. I just think, okay, he's not like going to start over Malik Neighbors. He's not wide receiver 1. He's going to come in. He can be a rotational piece. He can play the inside. He can play the outside. He's better than probably 6 other wide receivers that are on this roster, even at this point in his career. And I just think it would be fun. I think it's a good story. It's another reason to be excited about this team. And if he goes out there and he plays a couple snaps and he gets injured, we paid him $1 million. Who cares? Then Darnell Mooney's going to play more, or someone else. So I don't know. I just think for a 1-year vet minimum, like I would be excited about it. And I think there's more reasons to be excited than to be concerned about it if the Giants went ahead and made that move.
All right. Fair enough. Anthony, what's your take on it?
At least I wouldn't have to watch Jalen Hyatt play any more football, right?
Yeah.
I think everybody knows how I feel about Jalen Hyatt. And you're not going to sit there, if you're a fan who's against the Odell Beckham Jr. idea, you're not going to sit there and tell me that Odell today can't provide more than Jalen Hyatt. Jalen Hyatt hurts the team every time he's on the field. He drops passes. He runs lazy and shitty routes. He doesn't compete for contested catches. He can't stack over the top of a defensive back on a vertical route, which is why he doesn't win them. Odell Beckham Jr. is savvy, so he knows how to find space. He knows how to sit in that space. He's got, obviously plenty of experience that allows him to find the open pockets and zone coverages. And even if he's not the explosive athlete that he used to be, even if he's not the polished route runner that he used to be, he still has that feel for the game and experience, and he still has the ability to get open on specific use cases. Like, if you're going to tell me 3rd and 3, Giants are facing press coverage, who would you rather have out there running a slant route? I'd rather have Odell than Darius Slayton, and I'd rather have Odell than Jalen Hyatt. And I saw the stat, I don't remember who shared it on Twitter, but somebody put the career drops for Odell Beckham Jr. versus Darius Slayton. They have the same number of career drops, but Slayton has played 430 less snaps. So the drop rate is significantly higher for Darius Slayton. And I think that drops have been such an issue. And like I said, maybe Odell isn't the explosive athlete that he used to be, but he still has reliable, sure hands. And to the point of him being a locker room cancer or having issues off of the field, he really hasn't had an off the field issue since the plane incident that was mentioned below. And that was 4 years ago. It's time to move past that. And it's time to look at what he's done in the 4 years since then. Namely, let's take a look at his time with the Baltimore Ravens, which is why John Harbaugh is praising him publicly. John Harbaugh is saying that this is one of his favorite people, that this is a locker room leader. Why would we disagree with what John Harbaugh has to say about Odell Beckham Jr. and go do the reading and the research and see what an effect Odell Beckham Jr. had on Zay Flowers and Lamar Jackson. Go read about what those guys had to say about his locker room leadership, because he was instrumental in the early onboarding of Zay Flowers during his rookie season. So I think that he's proven to be a leader. I think that, again, in specific situations, he's still got a use case. I don't think that he's an every down player anymore, but there's a couple moments where, you need a big play from a sure-handed receiver at a big moment of the game. I still think Odell can show up, and if he can't, then he gets cut at training camp, because then at the end of the day, we're talking about a 1-year veteran minimum contract with no guarantees, the same thing that Evan Neal got here. So why not just give the same contract that Evan Neal got to Odell Beckham Jr., let him join up for Giants training camp and see what he can provide to the team. I don't see any downside to it. And again, I think he's arguably an upgrade over some of the depth pieces on this team.
If he's willing to sign for a league minimum contract like Evan Neal did, which I don't know if he is or not, I'm fine with it, like you said, Anthony, because there's no downside to it. What's the worst thing that happens? He doesn't perform well in camp and you get rid of the guy. I don't think at this stage in his career, you're talking about a guy who didn't play all of last year. He missed the entire 2022 season. He's had extensive injury histories. I don't think he's going to be a guy that's going to come in here like some fans may think and is going to instantly upgrade this wide receiver room. But if you want to bring him in due to his ties with John Harbaugh, the fact that it would be a popular move amongst the fans, you think he could be a good veteran leader and give him a shot to earn a spot in camp, I'm fine with it. I think when I think about it, traditionally speaking, the back end of the wide receiver, depth chart usually are guys that you want to contribute to special teams. So we'll see if he'd even be able to make the roster. You're not going to cut Darius Slayton due to his contract. Mooney's, of course, going to be a big part of the wide receiving room. We may draft a wide receiver, but if they want to bring Odell in and see what he's got left, and Harbaugh liked what he was as a leader with the Baltimore Ravens, I'm fine with it. It's not like he's a guy that's going to be an integral part of this team like he was. Like if some people want to bring up the aspect that they felt like he was a locker room cancer while he was here, that was when he was the star of the team, the face of the franchise. You're talking about a guy at this point that is lucky to even catch on with an NFL roster. He's 33 years old. He's got a combined, I'm looking at his stats right now. The guy has a combined 8 touchdowns since 2020. He hasn't been able to stay on the field. He had that one good run with the Rams when he helped them win the Super Bowl. But if the Giants want to give him a shot at camp, why not? Like Adriana said, the wide receiver room is very thin. I wouldn't go as far to say that I know that Darius Slayton was not good for the Giants, but I would still argue that Darius Slayton is probably a better wide receiver than Beckham is at this stage of Beckham's career. But to Anthony's point, there are certain aspects of Beckham's game that may translate better than a guy like Darius Slayton. I'm fine with it. I don't think he's going to be a big driving force for this team next year. But is it, I guess, something fun to talk about for the fan base right now during the dead time of the offseason? Sure. I'm not going to be upset one way or the other if he's with the team or not. But I'm not against it. That's my take on it. What does the chat think, by the way? I feel like, what's your guys' take on this? What do you think the fan base is if you had to poll the fan base right now on wanting Beckham back and not wanting Beckham back?
I think more fans want it than not, but our chat specifically is pretty split on it. But I do see on Instagram there is a huge wave of fans who want it. Yes, there's some that don't, but mostly the fans do. And on Twitter especially, it seems like everybody is on board. So it kind of depends which social media platform you're on. On Facebook, they probably don't want it as much. I think it just depends on which section of the fan base you're speaking to.
I think it's also like the younger fans that grew up with him as being like an integral part of why they started watching Giants football. I think he means more to them than maybe a fan my age that grew up with, Eli and, So I think your age probably has something to do with it as well. But
for sure,
I don't know. I'd like to see him back just because it would, I guess, excite Giants fans. But I'm not going to go in with super high expectations. But before we
that's the thing.
Go ahead, Adriana.
Sorry, real quick. I just think that there has to be tempered expectations, right? Like I'm looking at it as, again, he's not coming in. He's not going to be the Odell that we saw in 2019 when he won, Rookie of the Year and all that type of stuff. I'm looking at it as like, this is the end of his career. He's going to be a rotational piece. And if we can get something out of him and he scores a couple touchdowns, amazing. That's great. But I don't think he's going to come in here and put up Malik Neighbors type of numbers, as a 33-year-old with the injury history and whatnot.
He's probably WR 4 or 5. Like he's not, maybe even WR 6. Like he's a roster bubble player at this point in his career. Like, again, I'd take him over Jalen Hyatt. I think in certain situations he might be more effective than Darius Slayton, but realistically, he's not an every down player. And, he's a backup. So fans who feel really strongly against giving him a workout, I don't really get that, because why not survey every option, which is what John Harbaugh said they're going to do.
Yeah, at the end of the day, as I've said all along, I'm going to trust John Harbaugh. And if John Harbaugh feels that due to his experience with Odell Beckham while he was with the Baltimore Ravens, he feels he's worth a look at in training camp, sure, why not? You could argue the wide receiver position, which a lot of us felt was one of the deeper position groups going into last year, is our thinnest position group right now. And to bring some veteran leadership, I'm fine with it. If it's going to help the locker room, if Harbaugh feels it's going to help the locker room, I'm fine with it. I'd be surprised if he has more than 10 catches in a New York Giant uniform next year, outside of the Giants having significant injuries. But hey, if it brings some excitement and brings some camaraderie in the locker room, why not? But before we get to the next topic, we brought back, by the way, guys, our most popular sponsor. We only did one ad read for him, but it seems like every time we do the ad reads, everyone is always asking, when are we going to get IndaCloud back? Well, guys, guess what? IndaCloud signed back on. I think it's like a 14-show contract or something like that. So we're going to be reading them a lot more often. Appreciate all the people who watch you guys. Without you guys, it wouldn't even be possible for us to get these sponsors, which helps grow the show. So we're going to do a quick read on IndaCloud, and then we're going to get into the next topic. Appreciate all you guys for being here. All right, before we continue with the Giants, you know what's filling up faster than the Giants roster right now? Your mental bandwidth. Like, seriously, between free agency, draft rumors, and trying to convince yourself this is the year, it's a lot. And that's exactly where IndyCloud comes in. Look, I'm not saying this is the solution to watching the Giants offense, although we hope the Giants offense is a lot more watchable this year. But IndyCloud is a fully legal online cannabis dispensary. We're talking gummies, premium pre-rolls, and my personal favorite, the zero sugar THC sodas. And listen, this is the key part. This is a way to relax without doing too much, because we've all had those moments where you're like, yeah, I'll just chill tonight. And suddenly you're deep into a 3-hour Giants film breakdown, questioning your life choices. When you're doing film breakdowns of like Evan Neal, for example. I don't know how Bobby gets through those. I saw he did like a film breakdown of Pat Ricard, and he's doing film breakdowns of God knows who that the Giants are bringing in, but God bless him. For me, this time of year always feels like a reset. And instead of going to full stress mode, I've been pacing it better. One IndyCloud soda, and suddenly Giants draft takes feel less stressful. And mock drafts stop ruining my mood. Okay, that might be pushing it. What I like about IndyCloud is it's just balanced. It's like John Harbaugh, right? We all feel balanced right now with Harbaugh here, right? Special teams, offense, defense. Well, that's what IndyCloud does for me. Gummies to take the edge off. THC sodas for that clean social vibe. Pre-rolls when you actually want to unwind, and even $70 ounces so you're not getting cooked financially either. This is how adults survive the NFL offseason, and in recent history, the regular season. If you're 21 or older, self-care is 35% off and get free shipping on orders of over $50 at indycloud.co. That's .co when you use the code Giants Collective at checkout. That's indycloud.co, code Giants Collective. 35% off and free shipping on orders of over $50 shipped discreetly to your door. And don't forget to fill out the quick survey when you order to support the show. Enjoy responsibly, and shout out to IndyCloud for helping us survive another Giants offseason. So there you have it. IndyCloud is back. But guys, let's get to the next topic at hand. I think Adriana brought up this topic because of the meetings and some of the quotes that John Harbaugh came out with. Basically, obviously paraphrasing a little bit, but basically setting the tone that the expectations this year, as they should be, in my opinion at least, and I'm curious to get your guys' takes, is playoffs or bust. And I'm curious to get your guys' take on what Harbaugh had to say during the meetings. Adriana, you start. I'm sorry.
Okay. I like the expectation. I really appreciate that he's putting it out there that this is the goal. We are going to win games. And, he was even asked during the press conference, like, the Giants team overall played well until the last 2 minutes of the game. And then they basically shit the bed. Like, what are you guys going to do to try to combat that this year? And Harbaugh went into, his paragraph answer about how they feel like they have good coaching and they're going to come up with a plan and they're bringing in more players and, they're going to focus the scheme on this and whatever. And it just feels like we're in good hands. Like we have a coaching staff who knows what they're doing and who's actually going to hopefully get us past the finish line. So we are going to win more games this year. And I know the over under, I think, is 7.5 wins for us. I think realistically, I think it's very possible. Obviously, there's a lot of question marks. How's Jackson Dart going to do in year 2? We don't have a right guard. What is the defensive line going to look like? Like, yes, there's a lot of questions and they're all valid, but we also have talked extensively about how this team on paper is much better than what we saw week in and week out. And that the biggest thing that's hopefully going to change that is the coaching. So I love that he's like, we're going to do everything in our power to win games and we're going to the playoffs. That is the plan here. And there's nothing less than that they're going to be a tough team. They're going to be physical and they're going to be disciplined. And, again, he's going on about like, he wants guys who love football. I mean, I thought it was interesting too what he said about Neal and Azudu, why he ended up re-signing them, that he sat down and had meetings with them and they laid out a plan of how they were going to improve, what they were working on now, the big dreams that they have, the type of player that they want to be. And I was like, look, either they're both very good salesmen or John Harbaugh was on board with the plan and is setting them up with the right coaching staff and whatnot. And again, it's a low risk, high reward type of thing. That's fine. I get it. But I feel like he has everything under control. And again, we'll see about this week 1 to week 17. But for now, it feels like we're in good hands. They have a plan. He called it a work in progress, but they've done well during free agency. And, you know, he obviously has a history to prove it. Like Brian Dable used to say this type of stuff too. We're going to win. We're going to be tough, smart, tough, dependable, and whatever. And then it just never worked out that way. But Harbaugh has the experience to back it up. So, you know, I feel like if he comes in and he can't win with this team, something is severely wrong. We have to be cursed like the Jets, because I just expect to at least, you know, go 500 this year at the minimum.
Yeah, you brought up the Azudu thing, and I saw that too. The other thing that I believe I saw Harbaugh say about them is during his draft evaluations of those players, he was a big fan of them. Now he may just be saying that now because he's the Giants coach, but hopefully find, you know, is able to get something out of one of those two players. I still think, as we've talked about the last couple of weeks, they've got to bring GVR back or get like a legitimate veteran guard to bring in here. But hopefully you can get the most out of those guys. But Anthony, your take: playoffs or bust this year?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I've felt that way since the Giants hired John Harbaugh, and he said his expectation is to compete for the playoffs every year, right? His expectation is to compete for a championship every year. Okay, then I need you to back that up, and you need to compete for the playoffs. At the very least, I need competitive football in December this year. It's been years and years without competitive football in December, not since 2022. The Giants have just been really bad every single year since then. And I'm tired of walking into November knowing that the season is over. So the expectation when you hire John Harbaugh is that you don't have that feeling anymore when November rolls around. It's that you're in the mix of it. You're fighting for a spot, and you have an opportunity at the very least to go to the playoffs. So I don't know if I would say that I am expecting the team to make the playoffs, but do I expect them under a John Harbaugh regime to compete for the playoffs? Absolutely. And if they don't, the season will be nothing short of a massive disappointment.
Yeah, I'm expecting them to make the playoffs, and maybe that's setting the expectations way too high. Now, of course, would I be shocked, guys, if they win 7 or 8 games and they just miss the playoffs? No, of course not. And would I be bummed out if that were the case, if they were competitive? Probably not. I would look at it like, okay, this is a stepping stone going into next year. But you bring in a guy like John Harbaugh, you think about this team last year, all the close games that they've lost that we've talked about, the massive upgrade you have now with the head coach, second year with Jackson Dart. We'll see what they do in the draft. But I like some of the things they did in free agency. I don't think it's far-fetched to think this team can make the playoffs next year. I really don't. But that's what's fun about the offseason. We all project, and we'll see how it all works out. The other thing that I found interesting about Harbaugh, I saw – I forgot what site it was, but they had the odds for Coach of the Year right now. Who's the favorite to win Coach of the Year in the NFL? Harbaugh is number 1 on the list, which when you think about it, it makes sense because traditionally that would go to a coach like Vrabel this year, for instance, who I believe won it, who goes to a team that had a poor year the year before. You bring in a new head coach and a team that is projected to be a lot better the following year. Harbaugh has a track record of doing that with the Ravens. His first year he came there, I think they won 11 games, and they were consistently competing for the playoffs. But I just thought that was interesting, that he is the odds-on favorite to win Coach of the Year. So what does that tell you? That tells you that the betting public and Vegas doesn't think it's far-fetched for the New York Giants to make the playoffs, because if they did think it was far-fetched, he wouldn't be the favorite to win Coach of the Year, because you're not winning Coach of the Year, guys, if you don't make the playoffs. So I don't think the playoffs this year at all is a pipe dream. The NFL, as we always discuss, the old adage, it's a game of inches. Well, when you get a much better head coach, you start to win a lot more of those inches. So that's my take on Harbaugh. Not to mention, I think we'll be healthier, or at least I hope we will be. Malik Neighbors, Andrew Thomas, a full year under his belt, being completely healthy. We'll see if we get a guy like Jeremiah Love. I think he could boost the offense tremendously, or we could get a big-time linebacker like Sonny Styles. So I think we're going to get an impactful piece in the first round. And as we've discussed, I think Abdul Carter is going to take a massive leap. So I just don't think it's crazy to think. And you look at this division, guys. I'm not saying we should be the favorites, but I look at this division. There's no team in this division that I'm like, we have no chance to be better than that team next year. I really don't feel that way. Now, Washington could take a leap, but they could also still suck. The Eagles feel like they're kind of teetering where they've been, and I'm not going to say we're better going into the year, but I don't think it's crazy to think that we can compete with that team going into next year. And the Cowboys feel like they're kind of on a downward trajectory, but I guess we'll find out as the season gets going.
Yeah.
Next topic.
I still think.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. I'm still a little scared of the Eagles, but I do think that they are on a downward trajectory. I think the void years are starting to catch up with them. I think the fact that they can't run a tush push when their offensive line is not absolutely perfect is really harmful to obviously their offensive line. We even saw what it did to Saquon, that he didn't have nearly as good of a year as he had the year before. They lost some of their defensive stars to other teams. So So they've got a quarterback coach who's now their offensive coordinator. So I think it's going to be interesting. But, after beating the Eagles once last year, like actually whooping their ass instead of like a last minute field goal win, I do feel like we can actually compete with them this year again. And,
I don't think it's crazy to think we can compete with that team. I really don't. But, we'll see how it plays out as the year gets going. Next topic we wanted to bring up, kind of a minor topic, but I guess some positive news as we progress through the offseason. Anthony, some injury updates, or I guess like some status updates on the recovering injuries of Skattebo and Malik Neighbors. They look like they're trending towards being what may be perceived as ahead of schedule, which is good to hear. Both of those guys we expect to have big impacts on next year's season for the Giants.
For sure. And I think with Malik Neighbors, obviously the update that we saw was he's playing basketball and he's training. He posted a few weeks ago pictures of him in the gym doing squats and other things. So clearly he's stabilized in the muscles around that ACL and he's on track to be playing this year. Seeing that he's already doing hard cutting and, kind of like the agility stuff with the basketball definitely tells me that there's a good chance he's on the field for week 1. I know that was an obvious question mark. He was asked about it. He said he wasn't sure if he would be on the field for week 1, but I think that he will be. I mean, we've heard Patrick Mahomes might be on the field for week 1, and he tore his ACL in like week. Yeah, they're saying he should be back by week 1. He tore his ACL in I think week 16. So Malik tore it in week 4. Obviously, it's a difficult injury to recover from. Not everybody recovers the same, but it seems like he's been doing a really good job in his recovery, and it seems like he is ahead of schedule from where we thought he was a few months ago. So I feel pretty good about him being back on the field for week 1. And, man, I hope he is because, again, you look at this receiving core without him, and if you're not factoring in Isaiah Likely as a receiver, if you're looking at him just as a tight end, this is a terrible receiving core. I mean, you're talking about Darius Slayton, Jalen Hyatt, and who else? I mean, Darnell Mooney's there now too, so I like that addition. Calvin Austin's decent, but it's not a good receiving core without Malik Neighbors in it, but Malik Neighbors makes it a very good receiving core because he's a very good player. So they need him back. And then with Skattebo, I'm happy to hear that Skattebo's coming back strong. Obviously, I think we knew that his injury would be a little bit less of a difficult recovery than what we heard from Malik Neighbors, but I'm pretty sure what John Harbaugh said is that both of them should be on the field or in some capacity for April 7th offseason workouts beginning with the New York Giants, which is just about a week away. So Skattebo having some ability to participate in that is huge and exciting. And I can't wait for Scatman. I want more reasons to bash my head into the wall, bash my head into my microphone whenever he scores a touchdown. Like Scat is just so fun to watch and easily one of my favorite players on the team. So I'm hoping that he's back and that he's back stronger than ever.
That's crazy that he's already, I'm sure he's not, recovered to the point where he could take contact, but I remember, what was it, like October, November, he was on like a scooter at the Arizona State game because he couldn't even pet it. Mm-hmm. So it's crazy that he's recovered as quickly as he has. So that's he's young, so you would kind of expect them to recover a bit quicker than a veteran, but still, regardless, really encouraging things for both players, Adriana.
Yeah, I was laughing at the quote from Joe Shane that he saw him at Arizona's Pro Day on Friday. And he said that Scat was kind of like laughing it up, like running, jumping on players' backs, like former teammates. And Shane was like, bro, you got to stop doing that. Like, come on. And I was laughing because I was like, I'm kind of with you, Joe, on this. Like, the same thing with Malik playing basketball. I'm glad these guys are healthy. I'm glad they're out there doing stuff. But at the same time, I'm like, please just don't have a setback. Don't make it worse. Like, we need you. But I thought that was funny because I was like, oh, Joe Shane and I actually have something in common. Who would have thought? But yeah, it's exciting. I mean, when I go back and I see highlights of the 2025 season, so much of it is from Jackson Dart and Skattebo and the two of them and what they like really brought to the table and how they literally injected life into this franchise. And, you could really just tell that the team was not the same when between him and Neighbors, like when those guys just went down, and obviously it was the same. And then of course, Dart with the concussion and stuff. So anyway, I'm excited that they're all going to have a fresh start moving forward. I'm really happy that those two guys are going to be back, and it's going to be exciting to finally see the three of them along with the other additions on this football team, like Isaiah Likely and Patrick Ricard, like Jermaine Illuminor being back. I can't wait to see all of these guys on the field together for an offense that actually was able to put up points last year. So I imagine what they can do, if they have a right guard this year too. It's, should be exciting.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited to see the offense this year. And I just think it's, obviously we expect those guys to play based on what we've heard, about a month ago, based off what, we've heard through the press, but still really encouraging to see that those guys are on their way back. And sounds like both of them are going to be ready to go week one. So everybody's favorite Giant last year, Skattebo, recovering, and Anthony Me said Neighbors was going to win the MVP last year. Obviously that didn't happen. He got hurt, but really excited to see him this year, hopefully win the Triple Crown. But let's get to the chat. Appreciate all you guys for being here. Thank you guys, man. Best supporters on YouTube. We say it all the time. Thank you guys for being here. And we're going to get to a couple of donations that we got earlier in the stream. And Mark, man, thank you so much, man. I want the physicality of Styles, Mauricio, or Tate's bring. Downs would be disappointing. I think, Mark, at this point, I think if you polled most Giant fans, and I could be wrong, this is just the vibe I get on Twitter, I think like 80% would probably be in their dream pick at this point is probably Styles. Giants haven't drafted a linebacker, like we say every show, in the first round since Carl Banks. He's young. He's super athletic. He would bring a lot of excitement to that defense. I think he's the consensus pick by most Giant fans if he's there. That would be the pick that most Giant fans would want. I think there's some that would want Tate, some that would want Jeremiah Love perhaps, but I think the majority would want Styles. I don't know if I would label Downs disappointing. I wouldn't be overly excited about it, but the one thing, as we've talked about, that worries me is the injury stuff that's come up with him during the draft process. And I wouldn't be head over heels in love with taking a safety there, but he is a really good player. So I wouldn't be screaming if the Giants did that, but at this point, I think I expect Styles if he's there at 5. That's what I expect the Giants to do.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I like Downs, and I would be happy if the Giants brought him in, but I kind of sometimes I just get a little hung up on the positional value type of thing. And, looking at a safety where we've already invested in Tyler Nubin and Javon Holland, and, they brought in our Darius Washington and some of these other guys. And then, I just feel the same way about Jeremiah Love. Like, I get this guy is a freak prospect and he's an amazing football player, whatever. I'm just like, I just don't really think taking a running back at 5 is a great idea, but we'll see what they end up doing. But yeah, I feel like, especially where this team is at right now, someone like Sonny Styles is going to be a major impact player from day one. And that's the other thing. Like, to me, you draft Styles, he's playing 90% of the snaps off the bat. I mean, Harbaugh was quoted as saying that I think it was Shane who said that he liked Charlie Bullen playing more 3 safeties, but we don't know exactly what Denard Wilson is going to do. And I'm like, if you bring in someone like Downs, is he going to be a day one starter off the bat? How much playing time is he really going to get? Like, I don't know what Denard Wilson's plan would be for someone like him versus, when they drafted Abdul Carter, he's getting a lot of playing time. It's a premium position. They value that position a lot. So I don't know. To me, I'm just like, Sonny Styles is out there day one with Tremaine Edmonds. And like, there's no question about it. They are out there as the starting linebackers. And, you bring them in for that reason, especially with the 5th overall pick. Same thing with Malik Neighbors, like day one starter. He's playing 95% of the snaps. So I don't know. I'm a little like hung up on that. But if they pick Downs, like, I think he's a great football player. He's obviously a beast. So.
Yeah, I would have to think if they took Downs that early, he'd be a day one starter and play probably 90-95% of the snaps. My hang up with him isn't so much that, it's the injury scare and the fact that I'm just not in love with taking a safety there. I actually, as I've talked about in recent weeks, would be more in favor of taking Jeremiah Love, even though a running back, as opposed to Downs, even though a running back, you could just as easily argue with the positional argument, you shouldn't take them, in the top 5. I think for the context where the Giants are right now as an organization, it makes sense to try to accelerate the offense as quickly as you can. Obviously due to the fact that we have Jackson Dart the second year on his rookie deal, you want to try to get that offense up to snuff. So I think that would make more sense for me personally than taking a guy like Caleb Downs. But Anthony, go ahead, speak on it.
I love Sonny Styles. I think he's one of the best players in the class. If he's there at 5, I think it's a no-brainer pick. But Obviously, you have to make a decision on a few things. I've talked about the positional / market value of these players in their positions a lot. Carnell Tate, I think, has a strong argument to be a top 5 pick just because of the value of taking a potential WR1 talent at 5. You're paying them $9 million a year when WR2s and 3s in this league get double that. So it's really good value to take a wide receiver at 5 if you think he is a true star. But I get that there's other needs that the New York Giants have. I think you can make the case, though, between Jeremiah Love and Carnell Tate. I think Jeremiah Love is the better football player and the better prospect, and I wouldn't mind the Giants taking Jeremiah Love at 5 because I think he is the best football player in the entire draft class. But if your intention here is just to surround Jackson Dart with weapons, you can make the case for going with Tate as opposed to Jeremiah Love just because of the positional value thing. So, and either one is going to help you achieve that goal of surrounding Jackson Dart with talent. Caleb Downs wouldn't necessarily disappoint me, but I don't think he's in the same caliber as the other prospects that we're mentioning here in terms of Sonny Styles and Jeremiah Love. I think that they're far and away the better tier of prospects. And again, I agree with Adriana. If you're taking Sonny Styles and pairing him up with Tremaine Edmonds, that linebacker core is awesome. You have no questions about it. And you're now building a defense around those two players for the foreseeable future. That's one way to install an identity, and that's one way to ensure that your run defense flips from one of the worst to at least be an average overnight. So I would love that. Then again, Caleb Downs is an elite run defender. That's what he does best, is stops the run. So you can make that argument for him. But I think it's either Sonny Styles, he's excellent, and he could do it all for your defense, or you're adding a weapon / protection for Jackson Dart. And that's where other guys like Vega Ioane would come into conversation, although I think he's more of a trade down target. But again, I think every time we go through this conversation, we talk about this player or that player and we split hairs. The positional value thing gets brought up, and then I just fall back on, well, then maybe they should just trade down. Maybe they should just see what they could get, move back, get as much draft capital as they can, and then take somebody who they think is better positional value at pick 10 to 15 or whatever, if there is somebody interested in trading up with them.
Yeah, and you bring up the positional. Oh, go ahead, Adriana. You had something to say. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, well, we're on the subject of trading down. There's been some speculation that that's why, I guess, Giants fans think that Harbaugh and Joe Schoen are speaking so highly about Jeremiah Love as they want another team to kind of swoop in and be like, well, we're going to take him before the Giants. Do you guys think that's the case at all or no?
I wouldn't rule anything out. But I actually think the Giants are interested in Love. I just personally don't think he's going to get to the Giants. I think the Titans are going to take him because I think you could just as easily make the argument. The same arguments I'm making for why it makes sense for the Giants, it also makes sense for the Titans. Young quarterback. You want to establish a ground game, get him a weapon. I, like Anthony was kind of saying, I think Love is the best weapon in this draft. Well, I understand the argument to not take a running back that early. Love is a tremendous receiver as well. And he's only, 20, 21 years old? He's young. He's a guy that could be an elite player for your offense for the next 5 or 6 years. And if you're trying to maximize the window for that young quarterback, I see it making sense for both the Giants and the Titans. I'm leaning that he's going to go to the Titans. From everything, the majority of the mocks that I've seen, at least, maybe they've changed. I don't keep up with them every single day. It seems to be trending towards the Titans may take him. And I think in their circumstance, it makes sense. But I personally don't think it's smoke, but I could be dead wrong. I think if Love's there, I really do believe the Giants are going to take him, actually. I think if he's there at 5, the Giants will take him.
Really?
Yeah. But I don't think he's going to be there. I think the Titans are going to take him. That's my prediction. But you brought up the positional value thing. I actually saw this. I think it was on Giants Wire. I just pulled it up. Harbaugh was kind of asked about that, and he kind of downplayed it. I'm going to read you guys this quote. When asked about positional value and the potential of selecting a running back with the number 5 overall pick in the 2026 NFL draft, Harbaugh emphasized that the Giants' priority is building the strongest possible roster rather than adhering strictly to the traditional draft economics. The business is football. We are a football business. That's what we do, Harbaugh said. We're trying to make our fans happy. We want to win games. We want to be successful. We want them to come out to the stadium and be happy after the game. To do that, we've got to build the very best team we can. You build the best team you can with the best player you can get. To me, that screams either Styles or Love if they're there on the board. And in this draft class, in my opinion, as I've said before, the positional argument goes out the window because all the top prospects with that pick are not guys that are playing quarterback. They're not guys that are playing tackle. They're not guys that are playing wide receiver. The top prospects in this draft, for the most part, at least that the Giants could take, because they're not going to take an edge. At least we don't think they're going to. are either the running back, safety, or the linebacker. So that's just my opinion on the matter. It's why I wouldn't be surprised at all if they take Jeremiah Love, because as we said, leading up into the offseason, the priority this offseason is going to be to try to help out Jackson Dart as best as they can. And you can make an argument, in my opinion at least, that he's the player that would do that the best. Dominic, man, thank you very much, man. We can't do any better than OBJ and JPP, really. They will take up roster spots from the younger players. Dominic, I don't really care one way or the other. I personally don't think either one will make the roster for the reasons that I expressed during the beginning of the show. Maybe OBJ surprises me, and he's great, and he finds a way to stick on the roster as a wide receiver 4 or 5. But with the injury history, the point I made about traditionally speaking, the wide receiver 5, 6, 7, traditionally those are guys that you want to contribute to special teams. I don't really see what OBJ would contribute from that aspect. JPP is 37, 38 years old. But hey, if they get a camp invite, anybody that's going nuts about OBJ getting a camp invite, who gives a shit? If it's a league minimum contract and he shows up to camp and it's good for the locker room and John Harbaugh feels it's good for the locker room, I'm all for it. And if he comes in and he shocks the world and he could be a contributor for this football team this year, why not? I understand part of the Giants fan base, understandably so. I was one of those fans, was not the biggest fans of Odell Beckham on the way out. I did not like what he said about Eli Manning. I did not like the way that he handled himself. But he's 33 years old. And if the Giants are going to bring him in, you're talking about what I would think is a league minimum contract. I don't think any Giant fan is claiming that they want Odell Beckham to get a $6, $7, $8 million deal. If the Giants were to sign him, I would think to save face for Odell, it would probably be labeled as like a $5 or $6 million deal, but heavily incentivized if he hits certain thresholds, and a deal that they could easily get out of before the season starts. I would view it as a camp guy, and if he looks good and he's healthy, maybe he makes the team, but I would lean he wouldn't. But I'm not against bringing these guys into camp. They're bodies at the end of the day, and they bring experience.
Well, and also if you bring OBJ into camp and he ends up making the 53, reminder that they have 90 players on the roster basically until, the middle of August. So if OBJ makes the roster, the 53 man, that means he beat out Jalen Hyatt, Gunnar Olszewski, Isaiah Hodgins. He beat out all of these other wide receivers. He's not making the roster at 33 years old because they like him. This isn't Joe Shane and Brian Dable's show anymore. They're not forcing Tay Banks on people because he's a Joe Shane draft pick. That's not going to fly with Harbaugh. So if him and JPP happen to make the roster, it's because they beat out everyone else, which, if that happens, honestly, that's a little concerning that you brought in those two guys and they're better than 4 other wide receivers that we have, or, we don't really have a lot of depth at the defensive line. So that's a different story, but I don't know. I mean, you got to figure they have a training camp.
I'd be stunned. I'd be very surprised. I'll use that term for Beckham. If he were to make the roster, I'd be stunned if JPP made the roster. I would probably even be stunned if he got a camp invite. I think OBJ is more realistic. JPP, I don't even think he gets a camp invite by the Giants, personally.
Yeah. JPP did play for the Ravens, though, under John Harbaugh. So I think a lot of people forget that connection. There was a very brief moment in time where he did play for John Harbaugh. So he probably does have the opportunity to just call John Harbaugh up and see if there's any interest. But I imagine there's not any interest because, again, he's almost 40. It's different with Odell. It's different with Odell. He's 33. Like, he could be in the final year or two of his career before he retires. But with JPP, I mean, he is effectively retired. I don't even see how he could come back, but who knows? I agree with you, Chris.
This is my take on
camp invites.
This is my take on the JPP. If they are going to give him any money, you have got to wait till after July 4th. You cannot sign him to a contract before the fireworks go off. So any kind of camp invite, even if it's a league minimum contract, hold off till July 5th. That's my take on JPP.
Fair enough. But I agree, man. Just give them camp invites, see what they got. And if they happen to win roster spots, that means that they earned it. So,
Don J, man, thank you so much, man, for being a great supporter of the channel. Been on my channel for a while as well. Thank you for coming on over here. Malik Neighbors and Carnell Tate equals Smitty and AJ Brown. I honestly, call me a homer. I don't give a shit. I think Malik Neighbors is better than any one of those guys you just listed. I think he is the best in terms of talent. He doesn't have the credentials yet because obviously A.J. Brown's been in the league. Obviously, the duo with the Eagles have won the Super Bowl. Smith is super talented. We get it. But I think Malik Neighbors, sky's the limit, man. I think he's as talented as any receiver in the league. Carnell Tate would be a really fun piece to put on this roster as the 1A. I don't expect it. When I look at John Harbaugh's philosophy over the course of his career in terms of building a football team, I'd be pretty surprised if he took a wide receiver with that 5th overall pick. Now, if there was a wide receiver in this class that was of the likes of a Malik Neighbors as a prospect, they may very well do it. But I don't feel there's a wide receiver in this class of that ilk at that high of a magnitude where they will take the wide receiver with that pick. But we'll see. It would be fun. That would be a good duo, though.
I agree. I don't think that. Sorry, I don't think that Tate is on the same level as Neighbors, but I do think a lot of Giants fans downplay how good Carnell Tate is. He's got some of the best hands you will ever find. The ball just doesn't move when it touches his hands. He didn't have a single drop this past season. I mean, we always complain about how annoying it is watching Darius Slayton and Jalen Hyatt drop passes constantly. Giants always have too many drops. But, I mean, this guy, Carnell Tate, does not drop the ball, and he can win vertically. He's a really good route runner. I don't know why there just seems to be a narrative. I think it's because he played opposite Jeremiah Smith, and he was the number 2 receiver on that Ohio State team. So people hold that against Carnell Tate. Guys, Jeremiah Smith is like a generational talent. He is going to be probably a top 3 pick. He is next level. The only reason he won't go 1st overall is just because there's going to be an Arch Manning or another quarterback in front of him. You can't even hold that against Carnell Tate. In any other situation, Carnell Tate, it's very clear on the tape and the highlights, however you want to watch it, he would be a WR1 on pretty much every other collegiate program except for the one that he was at. He is that good. So the idea of him opposite Malik Neighbors, that is an incredible way to allow your young quarterback to grow. Carnell Tate is really damn good. That would immediately be one of the top 5 best wide receiver duos in the NFL.
Yeah, and I don't think any Giants fan I shouldn't say that, but I think almost all Giants fans would be happy if we took Carnell Tate with that pick. I don't think it's a pick that anybody would be flipping out about. He may not be the favorite, but I think most Giant fans would be fine. They would say exactly what you just said, Anthony. Look at what this wide receiving core could be. It's a good comparison with the Philadelphia Eagles. You look at some of the best teams in the NFL, they have a 1 and 1A. The Giants don't have that 1A yet. So if they feel Tate could be that guy, I wouldn't put it past them. I'm just not predicting that's going to happen.
Yeah, I love Carnell Tate. I just would be surprised, like Chris said, based on Harbaugh's history, experience, if they picked him. And also the fact that they did just pick a wide receiver 6 overall just 2 years ago. I would be surprised if they did it again just a couple years later, but I wouldn't hate it because I do think Carnell Tate is a beast.
Yeah, and the other I think that they plan to use Likely a lot in this offense. Like if you listen to what Likely said in the offseason, he said he wanted to be the guy for whatever team he signed on with. I don't think he would have signed on with the Giants if he felt like he was going to be the 3rd or 4th option in next year's offense. So I could be dead wrong. And if they go that route, I'll be excited. I'll be like, oh my God, this wide receiving core is going to be insane. I think Likely is going to be the de facto wide receiver 2 next year for this football team. And Mooney, I think Mooney's a nice piece, but I think it's more likely we take Love than we go wide receiver with that pick if we're going with a weapon. Mark says, I would be fine with Love. Worried Styles and Love will be gone. It's possible. It's funny you bring that up, Mark, because I was bored on work today on my lunch break, and I was doing the mock draft simulator. And sure enough, the first mock draft that I did, both of those players were gone. So it's certainly possible. And if that were the case, like Anthony's expressed several times, if a team is willing to trade up, that would be the time to do it. But you could certainly say, well, if those guys are off the board. Well, the thing is, though, Anthony, like you've said, that would mean one of these elite edge rushers have dropped, like Bain, for example, right? So that may be a prime situation if both those guys are off the board, where the Giants may be able to trade down and get some significant draft capital. So that may not be the worst situation if both those guys are off the board.
When you did the mock, who was the other player besides Mendoza that was gone?
It was one of the tackles. I was one of the tackles that went number 3. I can't remember which one, but one of the tackles. Yeah, I ended up going edge. I didn't trade down. I think I took Bain, or I took Reese rather from Ohio State. I took one of the edges. But in a real life scenario, in that spot, ideally, if a team was willing to trade up, I think that would be a prime. That exact situation is a prime situation where the Giants could look to trade down.
Yeah, or if not, I could see them going Maui Goa or Fano. I could see them going offensive line there if Styles and Love are gone. Yeah. Or Downs, I guess, would also still be on the table there too.
Yeah, I think Mayoga was the tackle that was taken. But Anthony, you were going to say something?
Not just agree. Sorry. You know, like if those guys are off the board, Styles and Love, it just means that an edge rusher is there and somebody's going to trade up for him. I've said that many times. I'm convicted in that. I think the Giants could get a 2027 first round pick from a team potentially if Bain or Reese is on the board. It happens every year. Teams trade up. Happens with the Jaguars and Travis Hunter last year. They traded a first-round pick for him. And James Pierce Jr. with the Atlanta Falcons, they traded a first-round pick to acquire him. It might be a little bit harder to get a 2027 first-round pick just because the whole league seems to know that class is going to be really strong. So maybe they'll be a little bit more hesitant to trade those picks away. But I think there's going to be a team like the Bengals, for example, who says, you know what, we could contend right now, but we really need a difference-making edge rusher. And there you go. There's Reuben Baines sitting in the laps of the New York Giants, and they don't want him. Let's move up and get him. F our first-round pick next year. Let's get Joe Burrow all the help he needs. I think it's totally plausible. So if Love and Styles are off the board, I would absolutely be looking to trade down if I were the Giants, because I do think you're going to be able to get a haul.
I also will say, a lot of Giants fans, they may not be excited with the idea, and I completely understand it because it's not something that probably immediately improves the team dramatically from the start of next year. If you think Baines is the second coming of one of these elite edge rushers, I'm not against just drafting the guy. And I understand that edge is a strength of the current team, but I don't believe in drafting for need. Like we always say, if you feel there's a gold jacket player with that pick, you take them and you figure it out later. You trade Kayvon Thibodeau midseason if you need to do it. I'm not saying that's what I think they're going to do. It's not what I think they're going to do. I think they would try to trade down in that exact scenario, but I wouldn't be screaming if they took Bain, if they felt like he could be, an elite edge rusher in the NFL. That's a premium position. That's just my opinion on the matter. Let's see. And Jackson says, why isn't Mansour Delane? Yeah, the corner from LSU talked about more with the 5th pick. Listen, he had a killer pro day, like we talked about last week. What was his 40 time? It was something insane, right? He ran a super fast 40 time.
Was it 4.38?
Yeah, he ran 4.38, which was the thing is everybody in the pre-draft process was saying the reason he might not go top 5 is because he's not considered an elite athlete. He was projected to run something closer to a 4.5. Then he runs a 4.38, and now everybody's narrative about him not being an elite athlete just went to dust. So I think he should be talked about more for the 5th overall pick. The only reason that he isn't is because he's not the same caliber prospect as who we expect to be on the board, which is Jeremiah Love or Sonny Styles. Those guys, some people will be willing to slap a generational tag on them, but they might not be for the next crop of guys, even if they are elite blue chippers like a Mansour Delane. That's the only reason he's not talked about more for the 5th overall pick. But if Love and Styles are off the board, we just mentioned a possible trade down. We mentioned some of these other names, the edge rushers, the offensive linemen. But Mansour Delane is absolutely in that conversation as well because he is that good of a prospect and he's a clear-cut number 1 cornerback in this draft class. And if the Giants do draft for need, this could be a situation where you say he's close enough to the best player available here, and we do have a great need at cornerback. Delane is a really good prospect. I would not be upset if he's a Giant next month.
And it also matches you with the premium position argument, right? That's one of the 4 or 5 most important positions in the league. If they're super high on him, would I rule it out? No. I think he's more of a guy that you would look for if they were able to trade down, say 3 or 4 spots. But listen, that's a clear need for the New York Giants, cornerback long term, right? So if they feel he could be a lockdown corner, and we talked about that last week, from all the draft experts for what they've said about the cornerback position, he seems to be far and away perceived as the best prospect at that position in this year's draft. And it's why I don't think he's going to trickle that far down. I don't think he's going to get out of the top 7, 8 picks in this year's draft because he plays a very important position and he's thought to be the best player at that position in this year's draft. And he had a great pro day. So I wouldn't be stunned if the Giants took him. He's just not my prediction right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm curious on Giants fans' take on that. Let's get the chat's take on that. What would you guys be upset, happy, or kind of like in the middle if they were to take a guy like Delane with that 5th overall pick? Because I do think it fills a need, like you said, and it's a premium position. Maybe you're overdrafting in some people's eyes by a few spots, but I personally want the gold jacket player. And if they feel like, I don't care what position they play, if they feel that gold jacket player is a linebacker or a running back, that's who I want. And I think the other thing when it comes to the cornerback position with Giants fans specifically, I feel like we've been burned so many times when we take those cornerbacks early that Giants fans are scared to take a 1st-round corner. Over the course of my lifetime, I'm not going to say they were all misses in the 1st round, but none of them were like incredible hits. You think back to a Prince Amukamara, solid player, a guy like Ross, solid player, but none of these guys were guys that you were like, oh my God, that was an incredible pick. Deontay Banks, a big whiff. Eli Apple, a big whiff. So I just think the Giants have a history of missing at that position or not maybe hitting a home run when they take one of those in the 1st round too.
Yeah. That's the thing though. it's the same thing with Evan Neal, right? That people are like, oh, we can't draft a tackle from Alabama, but Tyler Booker was great with the Cowboys. So I think when you're a team who's obviously struggling at those positions because you've drafted poorly for them in the past, like I think you have to look at it now like, well, we have better coaching. So I think Mansour Deline is probably a better prospect to begin with than Deontay Banks was. But also we have the right coaching, hopefully, that's going to be able to improve on any weaknesses or any issues that he might have. But I think to be a top 10 pick at the corner position, again, you have to keep drafting them because at some point you're going to get it right. And hopefully this year is the year that it happens.
Yeah. It seems like most people are saying they'd be okay with it. Not in the chat. Not everybody saying they'd be ecstatic with it, but most people would be okay. They'd prefer a trade down. But if you love the player, you take him at 5 if there's not a trade down to be had. So I wouldn't be upset. I just don't think that's what they're going to do. All right. Interesting. Rank the now. Before we continue, I think it depends on how you're ranking these. Are we ranking these in terms of success with the New York Giants or just as their skill set as a player? Because if you're just looking at the skill set, when we list these names, OBJ, Cruz, Plax, and Hakeem Nicks, OBJ is the most talented receiver of the 3,
Right.
Of the 4, I should say, just in terms of pure skill set. But when I'm factoring in what they meant to this Giants organization, which is what I'm going to take into account, my number 1 on that list, I think it's Plaxico. And I know he shot himself, and I know he ruined his opportunity to win back-to-back Super Bowls with the New York Giants. But I'm going to factor in how important he was to the upbringing of Eli Manning. I grew up watching that team. He was a big part of why Eli Manning matured as a quarterback early on in his career, was Plaxico Burress, which was the exact reason why the New York Giants brought him in to begin with. I always say it to this day, he had the greatest game I've ever seen a wide receiver have. And I'm biased as a Giants fan, but what he did in that NFC title game against the Green Bay Packers in negative 40-degree weather, watching Tom Coughlin's face look like he's going to fall up against an all-pro corner in Al Harris. I think he had 11 catches that day. He completely undressed him. Beckham's the most talented. But if you're telling me if I have to choose of those 4, who was the best Giant? I think I'd go Plax. He caught the game-winning Super Bowl catch. Was very important in Eli Manning's upbringing. Again, I'm going to go Cruz. Because without Victor Cruz, we don't win that Super Bowl. Most important play in that season was the 90-yard touchdown that catapulted us into winning that Super Bowl. I would have OBJ is the most talented, but if I'm making this list and I'm looking at it as and I acknowledge I'm factoring in team success into this greatly, probably more than I should. But if I'm looking at it just strictly in terms of what they meant for the Giants, well, the other 3 guys won Super Bowls, and they were a big part of those Super Bowls. So I would go Plax, I would go Cruz, I would go Nicks, and I would go OBJ.
If I was going on talent, like if I need a player in their prime to win a game tomorrow, OBJ, Plax, Cruz, Nicks. If I'm going based on their impact to the New York Giants, who had the best career with the Giants, who helped the Giants win the most, Plax, Cruz, Nicks, OBJ.
We had the same exact list. Adriana, your take.
There you go.
I was going to say mine is probably going to be exactly the same too. Talent-wise, it's obviously OBJ, but he never contributed to a Super Bowl here. So when it comes to in terms of importance to the team and what he meant to them, then obviously OBJ falls last. So I would go talent-wise, OBJ.
I'll tell you what, we're talking Nicks was insanely talented. Not that he's better than Beckham as a talent. Hakeem Nicks, you're talking about a guy that suffered an injury bug, but early on in his career, he had the 5X mitts. He had those huge hands. He was able to go up and catch anything. If we're just talking pure, and Plaxico was super talented too, but he was kind of your old school like jump ball receiver. If we're just talking talent, and Cruz is really talented too, but I think I would go Nicks second in terms of talent. But go ahead, Adriana.
So I think I'm going to go Cruz number 2.
Yeah.
I just feel like he was just one of those guys. So I'll go OBJ, Cruz, Plax, and Nicks talent-wise. And then most important, Plaxico, Nicks, Cruz, and then OBJ.
I like it. I think the 2 and 3 is interchangeable for me because they both were heavy contributors to that Super Bowl. Nicks, the first couple of rounds in those playoffs was insane. The Falcons game, he was used. The Packers game, he was tremendous. And Cruz was incredible in the first half of that 49ers game. And, of course, was, the driving force in the regular season, him and Eli Manning and Knicks, for why the Giants even got to the playoffs that year. So, I think when you factor in Super Bowl, which I think you need to, when you're just analyzing it as a Giant, unfortunately, as good as OBJ was, he wasn't part of any winning with this organization. I think it's similar to like the Knicks, for example. Like you look at Carmelo Anthony. If we're just talking talent, Carmelo Anthony's as talented as almost anybody I've ever seen in a Knicks uniform, but the team didn't do any winning while he was there. When I think of great Knicks, I would put obviously Patrick Ewing above him. I would put Jalen Brunson above him. I would put probably even a guy like Charles Oakley and John Starks above him because they were part of teams that were competing to win championships. And it's the same thing here, at least with the way that I would rank that. Let's see what people think. OBJ, Cruz, Plax, and Knicks. Like I said, it all depends on how you're making your list. If you're just talking talent, yeah, that's all well and good. But it's hard for me to put OBJ at the top of the list when all those guys contributed to winning Super Bowls.
I think Cruz, out of all those guys, single season career high receiving yards, Cruz might have the most. He had 1,500 yards in 2011. I don't know. Did Odell ever get to 1,500?
I say this all the time, and a lot of people would argue OBJ had the greatest single season in New York Giants history for a wide receiver, which is a very fair argument. His first 3 years with the Giants were almost as good as any receiver in the history of the league, statistically speaking.
Yeah.
But I think Victor Cruz's year in 2011 is the greatest single year a wide receiver has ever had with the New York Giants. He didn't play like the first 2 or 3 games, right? He came in because of some injuries. He ended up having, like you said, around 1,500 yards, and then he had a huge playoff too. So I think that year for Victor Cruz is the greatest year ever by a New York Giants wide receiver in 2011, personally.
Yeah. Knicks had a damn good year that year too, and especially in the playoffs. I mean, he was ridiculous, but I think they both put up, I think Cruz put up 1,500, and I'm pretty sure Knicks also crossed 1,000 that year. So, I mean, that was a damn good receiver duo. That was a damn good receiver trio with Mario Manningham too.
Not forget about Mario Manningham, who of course made the huge catch and
good football team.
Huge touchdown in that 49ers game too late in the game. Manningham.
Yes, it did. Yeah.
OBJ never had 1,500 yards, but 4,200 in his first 3 years and 35. Yeah, in his first year, if I recall, didn't he miss a couple of games too because he was hurt?
He missed 4 games. Yeah, he missed the first 4 games of the season. Then he came onto the scene in week 5 and just never looked back. It was ridiculous. And he averaged 108.8 yards per game. So if you extrapolated that across the 16-game sample size, he would have gone for record-breaking numbers. He did go for record-breaking numbers. He had 1,200 yards in 12 games. So, I mean, He was absurd.
Yeah.
Jeez.
It's funny how all these wide receivers on the list was brought in by I don't think Plax. I think Plaxico was brought in prior to Reese because Reese's first year was the year the Giants won the Super Bowl in 2007. Plax was here before that. But yes, all the other receivers were brought in by Jerry Reese. That is correct. And Reese, you can't argue it, man. Even though I would certainly argue the second half of his career was not good at all, in my opinion. You go back and look at his drafts; they were really bad. First half of his career, you can't argue. The guy was part of winning those Super Bowl teams. He had some very strong drafts his first 3 or 4 years. So credit to him. I think Accorsi deserves a lot of the credit as well. If you're being fair, you look at a lot of those impactful players on those teams, whether it be Eli, whether it be the majority of the players on that offensive line, the majority of the pass rushers, they were Accorsi guys. But he definitely sprinkled in some very important players on those teams. Even the second Super Bowl with Eli, you think about a guy like Roll, for example, was a big free agent acquisition. So Reese certainly had his hands all over those Super Bowls, and he deserves credit for it.
Agreed. He should be in the Ring of Honor if he is. I don't think he is, but he should be.
And Bears, thank you so much, man. People thought our defense would be top 10. Listen, I'm guilty.
Same.
I'm guilty. Like, I looked at that pass rush last year, and I said, listen, Abdul Carter's going to be great. I think the secondary is going to be better. I'm a fan at the end of the day. I'm emotional. I think with my heart a lot of times more than I think with my brain, but yeah, I thought the defense was going to be good last year. Obviously, Shane Bowen is awful. We learned that even more so last year, and the defense just wasn't very good. But hopefully, with obviously a better defensive coordinator and just a much better head coach, you would think the talent on this defense could get it much better this year. We'll find out. But I'm guilty. I thought that pass rush was going to dominate last year, and I don't think any of us thought Dexter Lawrence was going to play as poorly as he did either.
No. And also the defense for the most part though played well in those games. Like our offense was able to put up points and the defense was able to do a great job until the last 2 minutes and they just completely shit the bed. And a lot of that was play calling. I think also a lot of it was like discipline and stuff like that. And that's the stuff that I feel like Harbaugh is going to make the biggest difference with is the discipline, the physicality, not giving up on plays, attitude, that type of stuff that I feel like we really saw under Dable. I don't like that stuff is not going to fly anymore. And I don't think we're going to see any of that under Harbaugh. And if you see that, you're getting benched, which better be the case.
Yeah. Yeah. And then he goes, I should read the rest of this. Do you think with our new defensive coach and the players we have and draft, well, we don't know what they've done in the draft yet, but yes, I think they'll continue to upgrade the defense in the draft. The expectation should be the same, less or more. Bottom line is, I don't want to get into ranking talks because I don't even know what they're going to do in the draft yet in terms of how are they going to put more emphasis on the offense or the defense. But the bottom line is, Bear, in my opinion, and I think what we've all said at the top of the show when we talked about Harbaugh's comments about playoffs, I have expectations to make the playoffs this year. Whether that means you have a top 15, 16, 17 defense, I expect this team to be competitive, and I expect this team to win games against good football teams next year and be in the thick of it from start to finish next year. That's my expectations when you bring in a guy like Harbaugh. You know, I talked about several times during last year that I thought the answer to this team was to bring in a Tom Thibodeau. Well, what did Thibodeau do for the New York Knicks when they brought him in? Immediately, he made that team a consistent playoff team to make the playoffs. He was a guy that was eventually thought to be a guy that can't get them over the top, which is why they brought in Mike Brown. But the immediate expectations when you brought in Thibodeau was that Knicks team was going to start making the playoffs consistently. They did that. I think the expectation when you bring in a guy like John Harbaugh, you're talking about one of the 15, 16 greatest coaches of all time, should be to make the playoffs. And he doesn't take this job, guys, if he doesn't feel this team can compete to make the playoffs year one. He wouldn't have taken the job. He's 65 years old, 64 years old, whatever it is.
And also we retained a lot of the same defensive players. They're going to upgrade certain positions in the draft. They brought in a new linebacker in free agency. They made some additions there. So I think ultimately as fans, we should have high expectations this year. I think that's fair. And you know, we've got a new defensive coordinator. I think all of our collective biggest concern last year was Shane Bowen in year 2. We felt like the talent was mostly there on the defensive side of the ball. It was the coach who just couldn't figure it out. So I feel like this year you've got a new coaching staff. You retained the really good players. Dexter Lawrence, I think, is going to have a bounce back year. It sounds like the elbow was a problem for a part of it. And, you know, I just think that I think they should be a top 10 defense.
Yeah, I listen. A top 12, top 30. I think they should be a much better defense. Bottom line, by getting rid of Bowen, and I do think Abdul Carter is going to have a big year. I mean, he finished the year strong. He looked like he was starting to hit his stride late in the year when we got Bowen in there to be the DC. I think Abdul Carter is going to have a big year, and I think that's going to help the defense. And like you said, I think Dexter Lawrence does bounce back. I think he's too talented. I think the injury was a factor. He was still recovering from it. I think I read on Twitter, I think Brian Burns said so much to somebody. I don't remember who tweeted it out, but that he expects Lawrence to bounce back, and he still thinks he was dealing with that injury last year.
Even Joe Shane said it. He said, basically was like, I don't want to put words into his mouth, and like he hasn't said this to me, but I think the elbow was a problem.
It definitely was. Was. Yeah, I remember seeing him on the sideline.
I think Dexter didn't want it to be a big deal. Yeah, he didn't want it to be like a cop out. But I'm also like, if it was that bad, you should have just been like, put me on IR for a couple of weeks while I rehab this.
Yeah, I get it though. He's a captain of the team. He's making a lot of money. It's football. Yeah. Even if you're only 40 or 50%, if you could go, you go. I get it. He's a leader of the football team. I understand it. But let's get to a couple more people in the chat, and then we're going to call it a show. Appreciate all you guys for being here. Sports Card says, where's Bad Dog? Bad Dog, he's on vacation. We all get vacations every now and again. He's in Disney World. He's enjoying the sun in Florida. He'll be back next week. Let's see. Reese was an awesome scout, lousy GM. You could probably say the same thing about Dave Gettleman, right? Gettleman was a really good scout with the Giants, bad GM. But obviously Reese was a better GM than Gettleman. He helped us win Super Bowls. But guys, we are going to call it a show. Appreciate all you guys for being here. You guys are the best. We'll be back on Thursday. Hopefully some more stuff to talk about. Maybe the draft will start gearing up. Maybe OBJ will get an official contract. Who knows? But there's always something to talk about. Appreciate you guys for being here. Thank you guys for being the best supporters. And thank you guys for hanging out for a couple of hours talking Giants football. Be good, guys.
Thanks.
Have a good night.